Alright, hey guys, today I'm going to go through my Jurassic Meteor deck, or in other words, my Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid deck. This is a great deck. I love this. I love this card. I love fucking dinosaurs are great, okay? So I made this deck. I'm going to do this video a bit differently than I did the other one, so I can move stuff around for you, and we can take a look at it. So this first row, this is the most important part of the deck. Not the most important part of the deck. This is one of the key aspects of the deck. That's what I should say. So first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna move this to front. So first thing, we got this card here. I'm just gonna blow it up for you. We got Angrath Marauders. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Okay, so double damage. That's what all of these cards are going to do. They're going to do double and triple damage. But specifically, if a source you control, it's important that it says if a source you control deals damage to a permanent or player. Okay, it can also be creature or player. Okay, so we got Angrath Marauders. That's double damage to source to permanent or player. We got City on Fire. Let's move this to front. All right. This one's going to deal triple that damage to a permanent or player. And it has Convoke, so creatures can help cast it, or whatever. So that's pretty good. It's an enchantment. Enchantments are also important to anything that's not a creature, because your creatures are probably going to die. We got this one. This is, if a source you control deals damage to an opponent, deals double that damage. So this one isn't permanence. This one's less effective, but it's still enough to help the commander, because he enters with +1/+1 counters equal to the damage done to each opponent on the turn that he's cast. So this is all just triple damage to a permanent or player. This one's pretty good because it's goblins. It gives you goblins as well. So we got fucking Goblin Goliath here. Create a number of 1/1 red goblins equal to the number of opponents you have. So that's just a bonus. What we really want is this activated ability here. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, it deals double that damage. Good stuff. And then we got this one here. So we got damage can be prevented this turn, so that's pretty good. And if it deals damage, it deals double that damage. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double that. So that's even better. And it's even better because it has a second ability here, if we can rotate it. Okay. It has deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. So that can actually be like 4 or 6 or even more, depending on how many of the damage doublers and triplers you got here out already by the time you get this card. So that's pretty good. And then we got this one here, Isengard Unleashed. It's going to be triple damage as well. Damage can be prevented this turn. A source you control would deal damage this turn and deals damage to a permanent or player an opponent controls. Triple that damage instead. And it has flashback, so that's great. That's Isengard Unleashed. And then we have this one here, these one here. This one's same thing. It's just sources with an odd converted mana cost. And this one here is non-combat damage, which is great too, because we're going to do a lot of non-combat damage. And you can also make him indestructible, which helps a whole lot as well, because he's a creature. That indestructible would help, because this is going to do a lot of damage to creatures and players. All right, so that's the main component of the deck, is the damage double and damage triple. Not the main component, it's just a very key component. The second key component here is going to be damage to each. Let's bring this to front. Okay, Atarka's command's great because it does damage to each opponent. 3 damage to each opponent, and you can choose 2, so you can also put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, or like these other 2 also help. Like, this is just a great card to put in the deck because it has everything you want, and it's only 2 cost. Atarka's command's fucking great, underrated, and not used enough in my opinion. With this one here, we can also, because it's only 2 cost, it's very low cost, and you can make your commander enter with, like, depending on how many opponents you have, it can enter with a shit ton of counters, and you can also, you ramp from your hand. So, like, this is just everything the deck wants in one card, basically. So that's great. Good stuff. All right, so this is deals X damage to each creature and each player. So spend only black mana on X. That's great. The black mana part isn't really that great, but it works out because you're gonna have black mana eventually. So this will deal damage to each creature and each player. This is important because here's the thing. We're gonna have this here, and we're also going to have these creatures, these types of creatures here. Not this one. This one's a bit different. This one here, Brash Taunter. Whenever he's dealt damage, he deals that much damage to target opponent. So you can do damage to each player, as well as creatures that bounce that damage back to your opponent. So if you have any of the damaged triplers on the field or damage doublers, it will double the damage done to this creature first, and then this creature will deal double the damage that it's dealt to an opponent. So it like multiplies the damage to your opponent. And then you can summon your commander with a shit ton of counters on it. It's a great combination, synergy between all these cards here. So that's great. And then there's also these ones here that can you can equip a creature and it deals damage equal to its power. Okay, this one's not as good because it doesn't synergize as well, but it just works. This is the one I was thinking of. This one here, whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. So you can double the damage dealt to your creatures, and then when your creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to an opponent. But because if you have a doubler on, if you have one of the the damage doublers or damage triplers, it will multiply the damage to your opponent, and then you can summon your commander with that many. So let's say we grab this guy here. This is not a very good example because it happens at the beginning of your upkeep. So let's say we got all these. You can deal damage to Brash Taunter. You can fucking cast Arcbond on Brash Taunter, deal damage to him, deal triple that damage, and then deal that much damage to target opponent. Boom, 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 a whole bunch of times. And you can also just equip them with like these equipments and just multiply the effect a whole bunch. And then you can see how this works, right? Like you just equip this, let's bring this to front. Equip Brash Taunter with these two equipments, just like that, and then you just cast Arcbond on him, and you have like any of these damage doublers. It doesn't have to be sitting on fire. It can be any of these damage doublers up here, and any of these creatures, even Barbed Servitor, even though Barbed Servitor is like lose life instead of damage, it would still have a major effect. And then you can also have your commander out there. If he already has a shit ton of counters, like it goes insane. Like this is insane. This is an insane commander and an insane commander deck. Like you can go wild with this damage. Like why is there not very many people talking about this commander? This is insane. You can see how it goes. Like this goes absolutely crazy, especially in casual commander. Like because this is just a casual commander deck. I can't imagine what somebody with like who actually wanted to min-max this would do. Like I just built this for fun. If somebody was out there who was like more technically minded than I am, or more like mathematically minded than I am, like I could see them going absolutely insane with a deck like this. And this is just a one that I made just for casual Magic. Like I'm not a very big expert on Magic the Gathering. I just like playing the game. But this one is like my favorite deck that I've made. Well, second favorite deck that I've made. So I just wanted to put it out there and get people's opinions on it and see if they can, like, I know that there's got to be ways you can improve this. And that's what these two do here, is they're just damage. They do a shit ton of damage. This is 1 damage to each creature and each player. He's costs a lot, but it works out. So that's those. This one's really fun because other players can use his ability, which if you have some politics in the game, you can play around with his ability and helping other players out, kind of, if they are willing to go along with it. And then this guy's just pure gas for your commander. 1 damage to each opponent. You can tap them for a mana. That's great. This one's each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. This is great for like token decks. You can pretty much take out a player with this alone. Not to mention being able to cast your commander after or anything like that. So let's say we cast this for 2, and then we summon our commander with, like, I don't know, 9 or 10 +1/+1 counters, depending on how many creatures are on the field or whatever. We can even have this out. Let me see here. Aether Flash is great because whenever a creature comes into play, it deals 2 damage to it. This is great because your commander comes in and immediately we get the Enrage effect. Deals damage equal to its power to that player unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. So that's great for 1 effect, but also if we go back, these ones, if we have Pestilence out, or Pestilence Demon, or this Warmonger guy, or even Noxious Field, which is also tap a land to deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. If this guy's already out, it just triggers his Enrage every time you activate this ability. So those are great. Okay, we're going to take these out here. And we already talked about that one, and we already talked about that one. This one's just great for table politics. When you play this, no matter what, each opponent will lose, even if they all choose silence for 4 damage each. That's insane. And has flashback, like, it's crazy. And then this one requires a bit of lining up because it's at the beginning of your upkeep, but that means it's on your turn. So you can play this, and then if it survives the round at the beginning of your upkeep, it does a whole bunch of damage to all your creatures and to all creatures and all players. Creatures without flying specifically, I guess. But that's okay because you just do all that damage, and then you summon your commander because it's on your upkeep. So you got all your land available, hopefully. And then Defiler of Instinct is another. Oh, we already talked about Aether Flash. This one here, this one's great. It just turns red into you can pay life instead, and yeah, it's just, that's good. Whoops. This one here is like, holy shit. You can fight your own commander, and then you flip it over to the land, which I'll get to later. But the land isn't really important. It's the fight part that is. And then this one is pure amazing. Amazing. You summon it, you automatically get a Meteorite that deals 2 damage to any target, so you can target your own commander, and it taps for mana later. And whenever you tap an artifact for mana, you get double mana. So this is just mana. That's great. That's good stuff. And then this is for more damage and also some protection against non-creature and spells and enchantments and artifacts. So that's just some removal with some damage abilities. This is for Graveyard Hate as well as 2 damage to each creature, so that can also trigger Enrage. And then this one can also trigger Enrage, and you can also put land from your hand onto the battlefield with it, so that's great. And then this is a Mana Rock that can also trigger Enrage with 6 damage after it gets enough counters, if it ever gets enough counters. And then we got Mogmaniac, which I've already talked about. It just deals damage to each target opponent whenever it's dealt damage. This guy is a bit different because he has Indestructible, and he does, whenever he deals combat damage, you can draw a card and lose 1 life, so that's card draw, which is pretty good. But This one's a bit different than the other ones in that it causes your opponent to lose life rather than take damage. That's two different things, but it is what it is. It still works out with card draw and stuff. And then this one's really good because whenever you can just choose a target, choose a creature, and whenever that creature is dealt damage this turn, it deals that much damage to each other creature and each player. All right, that's how to cause an early extinction event and achieve victory. This is managing impact. We got the enrage triggers of all these cards. We got more dinosaurs. That's the most important part. More dinosaurs. We got a dragon here. This one's a bit different because it doesn't have an enrage effect, but it's more of a... Alright, so we got Silverclad Ferocidons. Make your opponent's sacrifice whenever they take damage. Like, just do that. And then we got card draw. Whenever he's dealt damage, draw a card. And then we got ramp. We can just search for a land whenever he takes damage. And then we got untap a permanent. We can just make things faster. And then this one here is a bit different because it's whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage, you can destroy it. So with like Pestilence or Pestilence Demon or Pyrohemia, you can just when you play this guy, and then just do like Pyrohemia or Pestilence, and your opponent will just lose all his creatures as long as they're not indestructible. Alright, so these ones are a bit different. Let's go with this robot guy. The vehicle part isn't really that important. It's actually pretty dumb. This side here is the one that we want to look at. Let's bring it forward. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to life that player lost this turn. So if your opponent loses life, they just lose that much more life. Like, it's just even more life loss. It's life loss though, not damage. So, but that's doesn't matter. If an opponent lost so much life, you just lose that much life again at the end. Like, it's insane. And then you got this one here to just make them discard a card or lose 5 life. This is life loss again, but still, it reduces their resources quite a bit over time, especially their life resource, which is what we're trying to do. And then this is the same thing. They lose life at the end of the turn. At the end of your turn, equal to the life they lost, or at the end of any turn, equal to the life they lost that turn. And this is the same thing, with a few extra steps. So, beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. This is life lost. It's not damage, so it doesn't really trigger the commander ability, but that's alright. It still is just an added benefit on top of the Pyrohemia and Pestilence when you do that. So then we got, when it becomes level 2, you can look at the top 3, put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, so it just gives you a little bit of a peek into your deck. Level 3 is the same thing. They lose life equal to life they lost this turn, so that's just bonus. Alright, and this is just all preparation for getting things into place. We got some board wipes, we got some artifact enchantment removal, we got this guy over here that we've already talked about for mana ramp, and that also doubles as a damage dealer. We got all of these things. We got some fog-like effects that can also shuffle your graveyard into your library, which might be helpful. It's helpful for me. These two here together, they bounce off of each other. Well, Roxanne bounces off of Savella because Icy Manaliths are also artifacts that you can tap for mana. So whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, you can add 1 mana of any type. So you can just double the mana you get from tokens as well. And it helps you cast spells from the top of your library, although it costs quite a bit. You can also prepare for an Ice Age with Ice Shaper, you know? Because that's what the table is going to be like after you're done with it, with this deck. And then we got a bunch of mana ramp. We got Burgeoning. This one's pretty good because it can, this Culling Ritual is pretty good because it can function as a kind of board wipe for like tokens or anything with mana value 2 or less. And it's non-land permanent, so it can do that, and you can also mana ramp with it. That's great. And we got a bunch of other, all this stuff is pretty good. A Burgeoning, Glittering Stockpile, Soul Ring, Great Hinge, Into the Wilds. This is all just ramp. We don't really need to talk about that too much. And then we got some board wipes here. A couple of board wipes that are pretty good. This one also functions as card draw. Decree of Pain is card draw and stuff. So that's all great. Oh, I forgot to mention, Svella Ice Shaper is sitting on a rock here, which means that her chair must have been stolen. That's unfortunate. We were unable to save it from being taken. So then we got all this stuff is also just more help for putting things into place. You can also these two here, yeah, they just help. You can copy spell instant sorceries your opponents control if they don't pay 2 more, and you can also just gain some life and look for land and sorcery cards, which is pretty good. This one's for card draw as well as buffing your creatures, and it also functions as a life insurance policy a little bit for if you need to push through just a little bit more. You don't lose life for having 0 or less life as long as it's attached to a creature, which is great. And this is more board wiping, especially for like tokens or anything with copies. This is more card draw, and it also functions as a land, which is the land part is unnecessary. Well, we don't really need to talk about that. It's just a land. Dream Devourer is really good for protecting your hand. You can just foretell cards from your hand if somebody has a lots of discard, causing you to discard a lot of cards. Protect your hand with foretell, or if they're looking at it, or like being able to take control of your turn. There's some commanders that do that, or a couple, or one that I can't remember the name of, but it's in Esper colors. This is just protection for your commander a little bit, you know, just hexproof and haste. There's another pair of boots that is might be better, but this is good too. Actually, no, the shroud isn't actually that good because you want to be able to target your commander. Okay, these are superior. Swiftfoot boots in this instance are superior to the other boots that are cost 0. I can't remember their name right now, but shroud means that you can't target your commander with your own abilities, and you want to be able to do that. So Swiftfoot boots is superior in this instance. Imp's Mischief is just for counter spells. Basically, you can counter their spell. You can cause their counter spell to target this spell instead of what you want. Same with this guy. You can cause any removal spells to target him instead of your commander or anything. And then this is also a good card for either saving for counter spells or using it to help double damage, or double a card that does damage, or double a card that double Arcbond, which would be pretty good. So you can do 2 instances of Arcbond, would be pretty good to do even more damage to an opponent. You got artifact and enchantment removal with +1/+1 counters, which makes your creatures a bit bigger so they can take more damage before they die. And then we got Lifecrafter's Beastry, which is just scry and card draw. And then we got the lands here, which is all just, you know, they're not really that important. It's just the most important ones are these 4 up here. Siobhan Gorge, Desert, Keldon, Megaliths, and Mount Doom. Mount Doom and Siobhan Gorge can do damage to each opponent, and these 2 here can do damage to target creature. But Desert can only be done to an attacking creature. But the thing with Desert is you can also target your own attacking creatures. So if you attack with your commander and then ping him with Desert, you can trigger his ability, his Enrage ability. Don't sleep on this Enrage ability. Like, yeah, he can enter with a shit ton of Bloodthirst counters, but then you can trigger Enrage a whole bunch of times, and with enough randomness, the end becomes inevitable. That's the thing. Like, you can make him enter with tons and tons of +1/+1 counters, and then just triggers Enrage a whole bunch. With like Pestilence and Pestilence Demon and Pyromania, you make them really big, and then just bring down an extinction level Meteor onto the field. And yeah, that's the deck. All right, so that's that video. I'll see you in the next one. I think this is gonna be my last Magic the Gathering video for a while, and then I think I'm gonna try to do like maybe Ark Survival Ascended or something. I wanted to talk a bit about that game and kind of like gaming some other games and stuff. But yeah, this is gonna be the last Magic the Gathering video for a while. I had a lot of fun with this video because this is like my favorite deck so far. Well, second favorite. My first favorite is actually one that doesn't win at all. It's based on Ark Survival Evolved, and I tried to replicate instances in that game into the commander deck that I made for Ark Survival Evolved, which is a different commander because it's meant to tell a story rather than win the game. It's pretty cool. I might do a video on that one eventually, but I think this is the last one I'm going to do for a while. So I'll see you in the next video.